Hello, everyone. This is Gabriel from Tools and Tooth. Today, we're going to be um, reviewing how to set up Uploadthing with Svelte Island in an Astro project. So we're going to be creating this drop zone, right, in our Astro project that is making use of a Svelte Island. In the documentation, they used React in the Astro setup. That's React Island in the Astro setups. And so you'd see uploadthing/React. But here we're going to be making use of Svelte. So we're going to be shuffling through the Svelte kit doc as well as the Astro doc. So let's get this started. All right, so I'm going to be making use of my media project, and I'm going to be showing you how to set it up in such a way that it works in Svelte Island in your Astro project. So the first thing, according to the documentation, let me put it side by side, is you install Uploadthing, which is the core SDK. Then the SDK that pertains to the island you're using. We're going to be making use of Svelte Island, so we're not going to be using this. So this is what you're going to install. All right, Uploadthing, the core SDK, and add Uploadthing/Svelte. So if you check my project, you'll see that that's what I have in my package.json. So here I have the core SDK, and here is the island. All right, so once that's done, we move on to setting up the router. And now this is the where you face the the major challenge. All right, but I'm going to be walking you through the nitty-gritties of it and how to get this to work. So what they said to do in Circuit, right, is to create a server folder in your libs folder and put this TypeScript file with the code there. All right, so I'm going to put this side by side against what I did. Okay, so I'm going to go to my server folder. By the way, the folder structure is not as important as this file itself. So where you put it is not as important as the code that you're putting in it. So this is where I put my server, and this is the file. You look at mine is quite shorter than theirs. All right, I'll explain why that is so. So first things first is this function, or well, I say this constant that is also a function, the authentication function. And here you see that it's fake ID. So expect you to put your authentication guard here. Right. So now the problem happens, or the problem question is, how do I get my current user in a TypeScript file that is not an API endpoint or a middleware? So that's where the issue is. And the solution to it, the simple solution to it is simple, very simple. Convert this object into a function that accepts your locals object. I'm using clear authentication, as you can see from my package.json. This is Clerk. And in Clerk setup, you would update your middleware, of course, with Clerk middleware, and you'd include the references to the types. And what comes with the references to the types will be additions to your locals object. That's your Astro locals object. But that can only be gotten through your API endpoint, which are these post and get, where you'll be able to extract your locals. So for example, if I do locals, the current user, this is my user, but I need this user somehow in my router, which is this, but it's not going to be easy doing it this way. So what I did was to convert into a function instead of a simple object. I made it a function get file router that accepts locals, which is app.locals, and you can see everything here is similar to here. The only difference is just the name, all right? The image uploader I changed to server image. You can give it any name, so long as you make it satisfy your file router object type. All right, so I made two of those functions, which are sorry, this let me just which are server image and message file here. But as you can see, they are kind of similar. Now, after this particular config, you include your middleware, which is this. Now, this is the auth guard that you need to set up in order to pass the user ID to Uploadthing. So what that does is I kind of extracted or refactored my auth guard into handle auth. And here, being that I passed my locals through a function from my API endpoint to here, I can also pass it to the handle auth function, which I was able to extract the current user. And if there is no user through an unauthorized error like this, If there is user, pass the ID. Now, once that's done, you can unupload complete, do whatever you want. Here, I'm just leaving it as a blank function. All right. If you look at my endpoint, how do I consume this? If you look at the documentation, the way to consume it is like this. But this is kind of convoluted to me, so what I did was simple. I did the normal Astro API endpoint setup, post this, okay? So up until this is what you would get for setting up Astro's endpoint normally. But how do I transpose this to here was the question. So the first thing I did was, like we had done before, we have extracted out the router through this get file router function back here. All right, so now I have my router, which I need to pass to this create route handler. By the way, create route handler comes from uploadthing/server. Okay, so now I know that the router is handy. I have it with me. The next thing would be to extract this endpoint that corresponds to my post endpoint here. So instead of extracting get and post like the documentation, what I did was simple. Router is here, create route handler is here, just bring out post. And don't forget, there is also a config, which is this. So instead of putting it inside the create route handler function, I brought it out, right? Where I could pass my secret and my ID, right? Then this is how I derived my post endpoint. And this is a function that needs to accept your request object. So what I did following this particular step was to pass the request object to the post, which is further returned to my Astro post API endpoint. And that was it. So the next thing I did was the same thing we get. All right, extract my router, but this time instead of post, I'm extracting the get function. And this get function, right, would need to accept my request object, and I'm returning it back to the endpoint. And that was the simple setup. And that was how I was able to, right, use Svelte Island with Uploadthing. Now, the next thing to do, if you go down, okay, this is the styles. If you're using Tailwind, this is what you need to do. Just wrap the config object, right, for your Tailwind here with UT. That's what you need to do for this step. Then the next will be to create the helpers. Okay. Now you need to create another file in your utils folder. You can put it anywhere, but just for simplicity, I created a utils folder. It's index.ts for me. And here, what we're doing is simple. We're extracting the helper that we're going to be using in our client, right? We've done the server side actions. Now we need to get to the client side actions. And so we need to extract these helpers, create uploader and create uploading. And you notice that there is a type here, our file router. And where is that type coming from? If you notice the documentation for what we had here, it's a type of this object, but we are having a function. So we need to extract the type of the function or the return type of the function. And that was here. All right. So if you look at, I am getting this same file type, our file router, as the return type of this my function here. The reason is because of these particular keys. Because we give them different names, we need to extract a return type for them so that when we're using them in the client recognizes these custom names that we're given as return types or as valid values. I'll show you what that means. So after doing all those setup, we move to the client, right? We're extracting two functions, 1, 2, right? So now we're moving to the client to use them. All right, so this is SvelteKit, which is page.server.tl, but I need it in my regular Svelte file. So what I do is I come to my components, I go to Svelte, I go to widget, I go to Uploadthing. Now, like they did, I'm going to extract my create uploader, which I got from my Uploadthing utils, which is this. Good. Now you need either an uploader or a drop zone. I want to use a drop zone this time, but it's still the same principle because whether uploader or drop zone, it will still use the same attribute, which is called uploader that you need to pass into it. So now The next thing you need to do will be to import the styles to make it look fancy, like a real drop zone, not HTML form. Then okay, this is toast for if it works or if it doesn't work, like a feedback. Then this is event dispatcher. This is my button. This is X. Not as important as what we're going to do next. So the next important function is this function here. So if you look here, right, and you look here too, you see that the image uploader is what's here because they used image uploader as their key in their router. I didn't use image uploader, so I'm not expecting to get that. So what I'm expecting to get are the custom keys that I used, which are server image and message file. So I'm going to choose server image because that corresponds to what they call image uploader. So after that, we move to client complete, client upload complete. So once it's done, right, you'll be able to get your image URL here. I'm logging in and I'm also dispatching it for parent function to extract it. And so anyway, the logs are too much. Then I'm also indicating that it's successfully uploaded with a toast message. This is Sona toast. And that's it. Okay, here I'm displaying the image that I uploaded, right? If there is an image URL, display the image. If there is none, display the dropdown. So now, a moment of truth. So I'm going to upload a file and I'm going to, what do I use? I need a small file. This, how large is this? 77 KB. So let me upload it. So I'll wait. Well, you can see my server running. This is uploading. Once it's uploaded successfully, I get my feedback. Upload complete. I get the image here. Okay, so the other parts that I skipped, which are image URL, get styles on click, is just to be able to show the drop zone once I remove the image. But that's the simple setup of Uploadthing in your Astro project using Svelte Island. Thank you.